Well, it's no joke. We have a major election coming up here on November 8th in the United States. Vote Republican, vote Democrat. But we're going to talk about Texas Railroad Commission again on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
Well, I'm excited here, and welcome back to another episode of The Crude Truth. I've got my first repeat guest today. This is not a rerun. This is my first repeat guest. I'm very excited. Wayne Christian. Wayne, how are you doing?
Honored to be with you. And it speaks well for you that somebody would come back.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
somebody came back. Right. I mean, you know what? The fact that I can say I have repeat. That's
you're pretty opinionated, my friend. You know, you're not very bashful about what you say. You know?
Every now and then, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like, hey, I got people that want to come back on my show.
Amen.
Hey, I may have had to beg and please say, hey, come back on.
Hey, I'm honored to be here. Honored to be here. Okay.
Oh man, well, you got through the primary elections here just a few months ago, and you haven't stopped. You've continued to campaign. You've now got the general election coming up on November 8th. Tell me, let's dive right in. Right now, what are you seeing as the key issues right now following the Railroad Commission?
Well, right now for the Railroad Commission is basically the state of Texas. I mean, and I think too many of us take for granted what the good Lord has given us as far as energy in Texas. If Texas were a nation right now, we would be number 3 in the world in oil and gas production. Right now, we're 60% of the U.S. production, okay? Yeah. So right now, the free world, Europe, is contingent upon the faith and production of energy from Texas. Wow. I mean, the experiment in Europe is people are going to literally, sadly, if there's a normal winter there, die. Because they are right now having their city, some of their towns are sawing logs and getting wood prepared to furnish warmth for the winter. Now that's what they call this Green New Deal, this what Inflation Reduction Act that they've just passed out of Washington in our administration, and that's what I'm fighting. You asked me what's the biggest threat? It's $350 billion of our tax dollars coming to part of it to Texas to expand more unreliable energy at the cost of stopping production of our gift from God in Texas of the largest supply of oil and gas on planet Earth. Understand, West Texas, in Texas, we have in the Permian Basin alone enough energy, oil and gas, to furnish energy to the United States of America at current technical ability for 200 years. And yet we have a president that's carrying the gas can to Venezuela, to Saudi Arabia, where we can begging for gas and oil. Yeah. And yet we've got enough underneath the ground here in Texas for 200 years in the United States.
I'm glad you said that twice. I was going to ask you to repeat that because we do have it here. And you mentioned right there technology, and that at today's current technology, we have enough to go for 200 years. Let's talk about technology, and let's talk about the Railroad Commission and where y'all are seeing technology at today and how y'all think it'll only help improve the oil and gas industry, or, are you thinking something else?
No, technology is super important. And one of the things that I found when I entered the Railroad Commission last term and by the way, give credit to Christy Craddock, led the charge for technological advancement. But I joined in, and you have to have the dollars to do it. Right. You can have all these good reasons, but unless you get the money from the legislature, it doesn't get done. Yeah. And so I was able to help with Christy helping work to get we had the largest grant from the legislature for technological improvements. Quite frankly, we've been doing technology for years and years, but of course we started with Fortran. Okay. And sadly, what happened is you had this department, and this department, and they really weren't working together. You would have to refill every name, address, social security number every time you file for a permit
Yep.
because we did not have a central database that shared that information with all the forms and all. And so a lot of advancement. Christie has led the charge on that. And yes, we're moving and have done more than any other 6-year period in history toward advancing technology at the Railroad Commission.
Wow. You mentioned that even my father has said here in the last couple of years, it's really gotten a lot easier to do stuff and the online process. And, keep in mind, my father's, 70 years old and he's very, very smart on a computer, but he couldn't believe that he was, and I will, say that he was more advanced than the Rail Commission
Yes.
was.
Yes.
And he goes, man, the fact that now I can fill these out online, and again, it's been a few years. So no, those technologies are exciting to see that they are growing and that it's only going to continue to get better as we go along.
Yes.
As all my viewers know, I had on Luke here just the other day, and I want to keep this as fair and biased as Brett Baer on Fox News would say. And so if I look at my notes, it's because I want to be sure to ask the same questions
Sure.
that I asked because y'all didn't debate and that was y'all's thing, but I'd at least like to have the people listen to at least some of the same questions. And I know y'all can't do rebuttals and things like that,
Right.
but hey, so let me look here, and we kind of touched on it, but Texas has helped control not only the oil and gas in Texas helps. We do 1/3 of the economy here in the in Texas is through the oil and gas industry. Moving forward, how do you relate that and help get that message to continue to go across, especially with these prices that we have in the oil and gas industry right now?
Well, the prices right now, understand, are part of this Inflation Reduction Act force. The original plan by the Biden administration, as Joe Biden announced when he got in office, first two things he did was shut down the pipeline for oil and gas and sign the Paris Accord. Then he goes in and says in a speech to the American public at least twice, we're going to have an energy shortage the next 10 years. We're going to have food shortages the next 10 years, but we'll be better off when we come out. Their entire desire is a direction. Now, understand what in the pricing, how that works.
Okay.
Why he's going to Venezuela, why he's going with his gas can to Saudi Arabia is because, and not turning on 200 years worth of oil and gas in the Permian Basin. Why he's not doing that is because their purpose was to increase the price of fossil fuel energy, gasoline, those products up to the point that electric would be equivalent in price. So what has happened since day one? They've accomplished their goal and continue to.
Yes.
And why he doesn't turn it loose is their goal is to make us energy dependent upon all these windmills and solar panels. Yeah. And so that's exactly what they hand it to them. They've done it. They've increased the price of oil and gas to the point that your gasoline at the pump is at record highs, and all of a sudden these electric cars are looking pretty good.
Yeah.
And so that's their purpose, and that's why they're keeping the price up there, to shut down oil and gas. We have a president of the United States, an administration that my opponent supports and endorses. Okay. Their purpose is openly to shut down oil and gas. If that's what you want in Texas, folks, he's your man. Okay. If you want to continue to develop oil and gas, I'm the one that's fighting for that against the administration.
Well, you mentioned against the administration, and that's another question. How do you, as a Railroad Commissioner of Texas, and again, it's the Railroad Commissioner of Texas takes care of the oil and gas. It is
That's
what
right.
it is. That's the name of the position, and they take care of oil and gas. How do you help get that point across to Washington, D.C. that, hey, the oil and gas industry is very important to turn the light switches on every day, and that we do need to produce more here in Texas and throughout the United States to bring these prices down?
Well, I've been in government for about a quarter century now. I spent 14 years in the legislature. I've been, of course, your railroad commissioner. It's the money, stupid, I think, is a Democratic slogan, right?
Okay.
Back, they said before Bill Clinton's election, what the race was about. And I think James Carville, if I'm not mistaken, said it's the money, stupid. And right now, again, you talk about the oil and gas in Texas, 1/3 of the budget, 1 out of every 10 jobs, all the rainy day fund, all the permanent school fund, all the college school fund, and all the $26 billion additional dollars we're looking at as an overage to go into the next session. You take that away, Texas is no longer Texas. So the same thing when you approach the federal government is you can talk about philosophy all day long. This environmental hoax is a scam religion that they worship in Washington. There's no logic to it. There's no truth to most of it. But so you can't argue logic with somebody when you're talking religion. So what do they listen to? Money. And so when we start affecting them with money, let me give you an example. Yeah. Environmental, Social, and Governance Fund is where their main agenda to make sure that the environment, which is we don't want to have any of our mutual funds, our investments into oil and gas. Why? Oil and gas will expand. So through their Environmental, Social, and Governance Fund pushing, they have in the past 5 years shut down 90% of the funding to oil and gas in America. Get that. 5 years, we have reduced by 90%. And that's what I'm fighting. How did I fight? I went 5 years ago when I was told this problem was happening. What they used was at the time the Permian Basin was just opening up and flaring was going everywhere, because that's how it does when you first find oil. And so they were shining these pictures. I had a fellow from Wall Street come to a board meeting that they asked me to attend. He said, we're about to lose financing in oil and gas from all this flaring because they're showing it out in New York to all the people and saying, oh, they're killing the environment in Texas, okay? So I go back to the Railroad Commission, and I appointed a study group of all the different organization, Texoga, TIPRO, Pipeline Association, all this. How can we address the flaring problem? They met, started doing recommendations to the Railroad Commission, working among themselves. And let me tell you what the history's been in the 5 years I've been doing that. Flaring pre-COVID at the time in Texas, the entire state, was 2.7% of all natural gas being produced. Only 2.7 was being flared. Okay. During COVID, it went down to 1.9%. As of a year ago, in January, it was 0.7%, went down to about 0.5% mid-year. Today, less than 0.2% of natural gas is being flared in the entire state of Texas. That means 99.8% of natural gas is not being flared. 0.02% currently or less. And technology will continue to take that and right. And you just don't, there's not a perfect world where you get to zero. I'm sorry. It just doesn't exist this side of heaven. Right. And so what we're seeing is we have taken care of flaring. It is no longer a terrible problem, yet we still have environmental, social, and governance funds. What did I do? I went to IOGCC, which are the 31 states that I'm represented that do oil and gas in America. Right now, we passed a resolution that I authored with the governor of North Dakota. Right now, we have 7 states, and it's growing, including the state of Texas, which my friend that was in my legislature class together, Ken Paxton, Glenn Hager, and we have all worked together, and I've acquainted them of what BlackRock and some other companies were doing, discriminating against oil and gas in Texas. I am happy to report that they are now back at the table begging us, because we've shut down by a bill that my friend Phil Kling passed, which Tarrant County Senator right now elect. Yes. And Phil passed the bill last session that said none of the Texas retirement dollars, pension plans, any of our billions of dollars investments will be invested in any company, any mutual fund company, any financial company that discriminates against oil or guns in Texas, okay? Yeah. And 7 states have adopted that. So successfully, I can tell you this, as part of my efforts in working at this throughout the United States, last quarter, BlackRock experienced a 16% loss in its total investments, and they're back at the table begging. The way you talk to them, these folks, by the way, another investment company lost $3.5 billion in municipal bonds because we cut them off in Texas and several states. Wow. So the way you fight the federal government is exactly what I'm practicing. It's the money, stupid. Yeah. That's what they listen to. Well, I'm glad you brought up flaring, and you answered my question about it, because it seems to be a key issue on this, as on the outside looking in, not for the oil and gas industry. But I will ask you this, though. How can we as an industry, and I guess this is a question I'm asking you, and you can give me the answers, like, we need to do a better job of telling people that, hey, out of all the natural gas that's being produced, less than 1% is being flared. And I had on another gentleman a while back, named JP, and we talked about that. We aren't doing a good enough job. So what do you think is something that we can do to really get the word out there again that, hey, we're doing a good job, that oil and gas is watching what they do, that we care about the environment? What can we do? The industry, politicians are a bunch of wimps when it comes to telling the truth about oil and gas and the truth of what God has given us and the blessings we have. The big slogan for politicians is, we're for all the above energy. Really, all. I'm sorry. I have a grade school education from a public school in Tenny Hall, Texas. When you say the word oil, it includes cow chips in the fireplace, mama going out and cutting limbs, all this kind of stuff. I'm not for that. Yeah. I'm for clean, I'm for good, clean energy, good, clean pure, the best you can get. I'm for the best energy, not for all of it.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'll go to these different oil and gas companies, these big multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies, and they say, oh, well, our shareholders just have sold on to this green energy stuff, and our shareholders are demanding this. So I've made it very clear to some of these board of directors at these big oil and gas companies about the tobacco lawsuits from years ago, Agent Orange lawsuits, the asbestos lawsuits. Whenever they, as a board of directors, don't tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to their shareholders, such as the largest gains the last quarter in the United States on the stock market were Chevron, Shell, and Exxon. Guess all these ESG funds that have taken the money out of oil and gas, their shareholders lost money. Now, there's a fiduciary legal responsibility a board of directors has to those shareholders. And somebody's looking for a lawsuit when that shareholder about 10 years from now looks back and has lost the rear end, and they look back, we didn't participate in these record returns of fossil fuels. And the board of directors says, no, you knew that at the time. Here's a lawsuit, buddy. That's the kind of thing money speaks. I'm sorry. I hate that's what happens. But then that's the board of directors. Now, what do our companies need to do? Get up and start just telling the truth. Nobody's bragging that the cleanest industrialized country on planet Earth is the United States of America. What has made it the cleanest industrialized country on planet Earth? Oil, gas, and coal, regulations, technology, the improvements by the industry, not the government, by the industry. I have yet to meet a person in an oil and gas company nor any citizen in the state that says, I want a dirty environment for my children. None. It's a non-existent, bear-mongering threat. It's kind of like politicians using this tactic. Said, my opponent has, I tell you what, my opponent, I think, has stopped beating his wife. Yeah. It's a lie that's told, and once it's told, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, it's going to keep ground. They're using one on me that right now about $100,000 contribution that I took was an ethics problem and continues to be an ethics violation. There's no ethics filing against me. There's never an ethics problem. Okay. A $100,000 check from an oil and gas company that I've taken. Let me tell you, brother, I'll tell your listeners right now, I will take checks. I am a politician. I will legally, ethically, morally take your contribution. Yeah. Give me a break. That's how you run a campaign. So yes, I take money. I take it ethically, legally, morally. It should not influence my decisions. I've been in the government for a quarter century. Show me one decision that was influenced by money. Okay. This is just... it's the way you use a lie because you have nothing to run on. It also shows the moral character of my opponent.
Whoa. Well, I tell you what, on that, Wayne, you just opened up a whole other thing right there by mentioning there, the contributions. I mean, you looked right in the camera, and you were like, you're not playing around. I want to come back to, I want to tie two things in together that you just were talking about. The conservation and that how you haven't seen an oil and gas person say you dirtied up. And you're absolutely right. That's something that I know I've talked about on this show and on other people's little shows and podcasts and over radio interviews that I've done, that oil and gas, whether they're the guys working out in the field or in the office, love to hunt, fish, camp, bike, be outdoors, in that they love the conservation part of it. And also, you said the word hoax, and so I want to kind of come back to that just real briefly and see and kind of just what do you mean by the word hoax? You said this hoax. So what are you talking about?
Hoax, scam, it's all the above. It's the greatest I think that I've seen in my lifetime. Let me give you an example real quickly. What is the best summary of what the environmental extremist argument is for? It's that they're afraid, and why we have the Paris Accord that the president joined back in, why they're shutting down oil and gas, is they say we're about to have the temperature go up in the next 20, 30, 40 years by 1.5 degrees potentially. That's the whole reason for the Paris Accord. They're spending $78 trillion, costing hundreds of thousands, $78 trillion with a T on it dollars as the Paris Accord. Okay. That's what the president signed back into. And the purpose of that is to fight the potential increase in temperature of 1.5 degrees over the next 30, 40 years. Okay. Let's look back behind us. The last 100 years, the temperature has gone up 2 full degrees. The past 100 years. I mean, this is fact. 2 degrees. But environmental deaths are down 99% during that period. Hold it. Okay, so that means that something caused people not to be harmed by that 2 degrees going up. What was it? Oil, gas, and coal. We had the heating, the cooling, the ability to defend ourselves, to drive off from hurricanes. So we had defense that was never there on planet Earth until it was provided by oil, gas, and coal. So we went through 100 years of two degrees increase. Oil, gas, and coal defended us where we're better off, healthier, 99% less deaths than previous. And so now the logic is we're going to face 1.5 degrees in the future. And the way we're going to defend that is take away what has provided us the safety net against that.
You know, sometimes I do think that the oil and gas industry has helped with these type of these deals because of, like, let's talk about the way that we make stuff stronger now. I mean, what about the lightweight in clothes or in things that are now stronger, that last longer, or, you know, things that are now being able to survive longer in these unfortunately things like hurricanes. But yeah, no, I do also think that the oil and gas industry has helped out the Mother Earth more than anything else. Yes, we've had some horrific accidents, just like, you know, any other industry that may have. But
guess what we did though? Cleaned it up.
Yeah, cleaned them up.
Name one we didn't. Yeah. And name some other industry that never have. Yeah. And the cleanest oil and gas produced on planet Earth is beyond doubt from the United States of America. So if we want to clean up Mother Earth, why are we shutting down the cleanest producer so that it will increase on China, Saudi Arabia, these others that are not clean?
Yes.
To put more into the atmosphere. It's insanity. You're shutting down the cleanest producer, and President Biden said that. President Biden, in his first speech to Congress, said, we are 15% of the world's environment. Jeez. The rest of the world is 85%. This is quoting him. Look it up on television.
Okay.
And he says, if we did everything right, which with him right means the Green New Deal and the Inflation Reduction Act and all this that he's put in place. His quote, if we did everything right, it would make no difference. Okay? And then immediately his next statement, that's why I joined the Paris Accord, which was an oxymoron. but here you have the president admitting if he does everything this $350 billion shutdown to oil and gas is going to perform, it will make no difference. Now, I'm sorry. I'm just no guy. And if I'm going to give you $50 to do something, but I find out that whatever it is not going to make any difference to me, am I going to give you $50 to buy something that isn't going to make any difference whatsoever?
Right.
Well, our president is. Yeah. This is insanity.
No, that is where I feel like we're really living more in the upside down world, is that we're asking Venezuela and maybe Russia through Iran and for them to produce more oil, and yet their regulations are nowhere near what they are here. Like, you know, we are clean. You know,
let me give you what's happening in Texas. Yeah. Last year, or the calendar year just before this last year, China and India built 288 coal-powered electric generating facilities, factories. Okay. All right. Now, I guarantee you their standard of cleanliness is not EPA's.
Right.
So they're having smokestack coal generating electric power plants to do what? To build 60% of the windmills, solar panels, and batteries that we use. Yeah. So now here's the picture. Last 20 years, state of Texas has paid $60 billion in federal tax, our federal tax dollars, and $24 billion in our state tax dollars the last 20 years on windmills and solar panels. So we send our tax dollar over to Red China. Yep. And I'm sure they're going to do great things with our $90 billion the last 20 years, right?
Right.
So we give them the money with partly concentration camp labor to send us their windmills and solar panels. We bring them over here, give them local tax breaks to stick them up in Texas and brag about how we're improving the environment. That is actually the fact of what's going on. Uri, the storm where the lights went out.
Yes.
Okay. Wind and solar went to 0 and 7%. Okay. Natural gas went from 48% up to about almost 70%. Yes. 99% of the folks that turned on and their natural gas bill or their propane usage during Storm Uri, 99% had natural gas. Okay. It didn't go out.
Okay, so it didn't go out.
No.
In fact, you said turn up, so theirs didn't go out.
When you go and turn on your retail people, your retail turn on their stove, whatever, it's what saved me. I was 5.5 days without electricity. It got cold, except I was able to turn my stove on. Natural gas was there. Yeah. Okay. So and by the way, the Railroad Commission does not regulate electricity. That's PUC and ERCOT. We do natural gas. So we did our provision. But the fact is, since the storm, so we learned, and the Wall Street Journal published a piece 30 days after.
I was going to ask you about if we were going to be ready, so keep going.
Yeah, but 30 days after the Storm Uri, I had an article published in the Wall Street Journal. And just to summarize my belief of what happened during Storm Uri and the shutdown of electricity during that winter storm is we have spent so much money and efforts in Texas on unreliable energy, wind and solar, that went to 0 and 7, that we let the pilot light go out on reliable energy, which is coal, gas, and nuclear. Yeah. And we learned that, I think. That was a lesson, okay? What have we done since Storm Uri in Texas? This ain't New York and California. What have we done? We've increased the number and amount of wind and solar electric generators. We have decreased reliable energy by retiring coal and natural gas facilities in Texas. So here we sit in Texas. Listen to put the logic together on this one.
Okay.
We are increasing the population by 1,000 people a day legally.
Right.
Okay, legally.
Okay.
Okay, which is increasing what? Demand. We are, for reliable energy, since Storm Uri, our reliable energy distribution amount has gone what? Down. When you increase the demand and decrease the supply, we're heading for rolling blackouts. This is the insanity of the policy that I am running and I'm fighting in Austin and Washington.
So, okay, well, let's talk about this and why are we, okay, so my main question was, are we ready? Because fortunately last year it wasn't, and I do believe that Uri, as they call it, was the most crazy. I mean, we had powder snow and that you could ski on, like, you know, I've never seen that. I don't even think my father's 70. I don't think he's ever seen that. So it was a very, I would like to say maybe one of those once every 100 or 200 storms. Okay.
Right.
And last year we had a few rolling blackouts here and there, but nothing major. So my main question is, are we ready for another Uri type situation if it were to happen? And it doesn't sound like it.
Fact is, we're in better shape than we were. Because a lot of the Senate Bill 3 from the legislature addressed that for us to look at the operational problems. And really, this was, again, like you said, a 100-year storm. Right. Nobody was ready for that. And most of the natural gas decrease, which, by the way, was 6.9% of electricity that was lost during that time, 6.9 was responsible by natural gas. The rest of it by wind and solar and other generating problems and water problems and different things like that. So 6.9%. Natural gas was responsible for, which is the Railroad Commission does. A lot of that was because in West Texas, the roads froze over.
Right.
And I mean, they weren't going to risk lives at the oil and gas drilling operations for their personnel to climb those slick pipes and to drive those icy roads. I mean, I'm sorry, the world just shut down. And I don't know how you're going to ever fix that part of it. When God decides it's going to get that cold, Bubba, people are going to hurt. Let me tell you why natural gas was able to do 99% of its delivery during that time, and a lot of people don't know this.
Hold on, but you are saying, though, that we've decreased our usage of natural gas since then?
We've decreased the supply of natural gas provided to electricity by slightly from natural gas, mostly by coal. We're decreasing our lignite mines because of the environmental garbage and other factors, too. Let me give you some other things that's really costing us. Because of these environmental, social, and governance funds, which is something I've been fighting, as we talked earlier about. ESG funds are saying if you do coal or you do nuclear or you do natural gas, then we're not going to provide funding for you. And these mutual fund, and that's the biggest scam in the investment industry. I'm a 30-year registered broker in securities. So I know the fiduciary standards and all this. And so I had Fink's organization, Michael Fink, which is BlackRock, in my office begging. And we've passed laws in Texas from that because they had come back, by the way, and this is kind of screwy. He's a member of what's called the World Economic Forum. George Soros, Larry Fink, Bill Gates, Al Gore, was Prince Charles, now King Charles, and all those arrogant folks are sitting here saying, we're going to have this product in the United States. Their purpose, their agenda is called the Great Reset. Okay? Great Reset is to move the United States basically away being the superpower of the world. So part of the way they do that is through energy, and that's where it comes to me. So they've come over here with these ESG funds to shut down production of oil and gas in America. And by the way, in the last 5 years, the environmental, social, and governance funds that have set these big financial organizations have said, we're not funding oil and gas, and we're telling our shareholders that we're going to do that in these ESG, environmental, social, and governance funds. They've shut down funding to oil and gas by 90% in the past 5 years. So back to the future for oil and gas, Storm Uri. How does this connect? If these oil and gas companies, or the gas and coal companies, or nuclear companies, say we need more reliable energy in Texas, so we need more reliable energy instead of wind and solar. You're saying since the storm. What company is going to come in if they don't have the money to put a $500 million natural gas electric generating facility in? They don't have the money. Why? The environmental folks have shut down the financing. So number two, why would they? If you got a president of these United States say, I'm shutting you down in 6 months, who would put a $500 million of their shareholders' money into an operation in Texas? Third, We just had the largest Green New Deal AOC Biden agenda passed from Washington, D.C. and Congress called the Inflation Reduction Act as a hoax and a scam to even not even name it what it does. What it does is spend $350 billion with a B on it, dollars of mine and yours, to come in and shut down oil and coal and natural gas. So who would invest in reliable energy when you got the federal government? Plus, a lot of that money will come to Texas. And I've told you that in the last 20 years, 60 billion, add another couple of $100 billion to it coming from the feds right now. So what local community, what local entity, when they say this company comes in with your tax dollar in mind, with say a $300 million to put a new solar facility in your hometown in rural Texas, who's going to say, no, don't bring that in? So that's what I'm at fear with. We're fighting with our own dollars being used, our own dollars to commit murder to the oil and gas industry. And again, when they do that, that's a third of our economy, 1 out of every 10 jobs, all the rainy day fund, all the permanent school fund, all the $26 billion. Texas ain't Texas anymore. And why is there not currently a law on the Republican platform that I see dealing with this problem? Zero. And I have my theories on that too.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let me ask you the question that needs to be asked.
Okay.
That people need to know is, why should you be reelected as railroad commissioner of this great state?
It boils down, if you want Joe Biden and shutting down oil and gas and coal, and you want to take away a third of our economy, 1 out of every 10 jobs, all that. If you think that's wrong and bad and horrible, vote for my opponent. That's what he's for. That's who he supports. And when you support that agenda, you continue. If you want somebody that's fighting it and proven fighting it, I'm the guy that's there fighting it.
And where can they find you?
They can find me at christianfortexas.com, christianfortexas.com.
And you will take donations.
I'll take money. If it's legal, ethically, morally, you bet. I'll take it. I won't deny the fact that, and I think that's just kind of funny. You get letters every day. Send me $10, send me $50. But if Christian does it, this is ethically wrong. I'm sorry.
You've got no. I'm not in that political game, and I hear stories on all the different news outlets on money being raised left and right for different things. So I like.
Listen, I just honestly, and some of why I'm here. I'm old enough. I'm concerned for my grandkids. I'm living in the twilight zone. I turn on the news every day, and I can't believe all of the stuff. But let me tell you where my fear is, and back to oil and gas, and you can cut this out of the whatever. But I think basically we have been handed by World Economic Forum, the Biden administration, Curry and all these folks have handed us a lot of horrible, you talk about the border. The border, you got all these people coming across, drugs coming across. It's unbelievable. It's scary. What's scary, even further than that, just kind of aside, last week the president of Mexico, you see on the news, was announcing they had been speaking with the Secretary of State, and they are talking about becoming the North American Union, like the European Union. Whoa. And so their goal, I was thinking it was just take down the barrier to let in more voters eventually for their party and their cause. My friend, they're talking about taking the borders down and making it permanently a North American country. That is what the Secretary of State of the United States has told. But anyhow, that's one thing. So you got that problem. Then you got education in our public schools. Then you got there's all these unbelievable problems going on. But Maslow's hierarchy. Where it says if you don't get food, clothing, shelters down here on the basic needs, all the rest kind of go away. Well, all of these fires, these fires that we have that are legitimate battles, I think are getting us divided, our attention going 15 different directions here, while the forest fire comes, which is taking away the United States as being the superpower of the world, putting us under control by a socialist system where the big dogs under these ESG funds, you go to your local bank and they say, hey, buddy, I see you want to buy a new car, but we see you've been burning too much gasoline by your environmental, social, and governance score, and your local bank is not going to loan you the money, just like they've shut down the oil and gas industries. That's what I'm fighting here.
Wayne, you just said I'm fighting that. I mean, you just threw out some... And I'm going to use the words conspiracy theories just now. I mean,
it's not a theory anymore, my friend. Look at the World Economic Forum. Search it on your computer. You've got to believe everything it says, right?
Okay. Wow.
Oh, it's there. Look at the. Glenn Beck has a great book on this called The Great Reset, and it describes this in details if people are interested. Of course, he's a right-wing extremist like me, so some people won't appreciate that. So just simply Google it, okay? And look at their Great Reset program. Look at their environmental, social, and governance funds, how they want to shut it. Look how that BlackRock is now the largest residential purchaser in the state of Texas. Why? They want to take away the American dream of owning a home. So if they purchase these homes back in residential, which they are in Harris County, the #1 BlackRock is, so they can become the landlords and you become the tenant. I mean, this sounds crazy, and it's not, but I'm going off on a whole different tangent.
I know you are. You really are. I feel like that's, I know you are. And
but this is energy. This is what's happening in oil and gas in Texas. We are being bought out by our own tax dollars, $350 billion, the largest environmental act in the history of planet Earth. Al Gore and his crew and AOC are going, yes, this is victory. We've done it.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do about it in Texas? That scares me. I don't know what the answer is. I just want to get the forces off their rear ends, put on our big boy and girl britches, and let's fight.
Wayne, I'm going to stop right there because we're getting into a whole area that I think I want to let people like stew on this for a while, because I would never, that what you just shared is something as a politician that I would have never guessed to hear somebody say. And you also said like that I'm a hey man, I'm on the right wing side of this thing.
Yes.
So I want to stop there with this today, and I think we're gonna have to revisit this. And but no, that is all the time we have. Wayne, I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. It is awesome that you're doing what you're doing here, and keep it up, and good luck in the election, and we'll see here what happens on November 8th.
Thank you very much.
But no, Wayne, thank you. And again, election night is Tuesday, November 8th. Get out and vote. That's it on this episode of The Crude Truth.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.